Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Buckle up, because this isn't one of those stories where you gradually realize your relationship is falling apart. No, I knew the moment my hand touched the velvet curtain and the room went silent that something irreversible had happened. I just didn't know how publicly she was going to burn me down. Let me back up, not to the beginning of our relationship because frankly that's irrelevant now, but to last Thursday, when I walked into the Ember Lounge thinking I was attending a surprise retirement party for her boss. I wasn't even supposed to be there. Claire specifically told me to stay home. It's work only, Merrick. It'll be boring. But her sister, her own sister, texted me asking why I wasn't coming. Red flag number 78. So I showed up, quietly, uninvited. I parked 2 blocks away, walked through the alley behind the lounge, and slipped through the back door. It was dimly lit, music low, expensive shoes on every foot. I saw her immediately, laughing, hair curled, shoulders bare. Not a single person looked bored, especially her. She was leaning on some guy I didn't recognize. Tall, confident, the kind of guy who smirks like he owns the oxygen in the room. Her hand lingered on his chest like it had forgotten I even existed. And that might have been survivable, until she took the microphone. She asked the DJ to kill the music. Everyone turned. I want to make a toast, she said. Then she smiled directly at him. Not me. Not the man she legally shared a last name with, but the stranger holding her waist. Some of you know I've been conflicted, she said, tilting her glass. I've had someone in my life who's safe, predictable, stable. That's me, by the way. But I've realized that stability isn't passion. And tonight, I'm making a choice. A few people gasped. One woman clapped. I stood frozen, just inside the curtain. Invisible. Then she said it. Loud, clear, final. Merrick, I know you're here. Either come out and listen to what I have to say, or take your keys and leave. And if you leave, don't come back. No one breathed. Not even me. I stepped out from behind the curtain. The crowd parted. Claire's eyes didn't flinch. She looked almost relieved. I walked toward her slowly, my hands trembling in front of 100 silent people. Then, without a word, I dropped my car keys onto the table beside her champagne. They clattered like gunfire. She blinked. I walked. And that's the moment everything, the lies, the pretending, the quiet suffering, finally ended. The sound of my keys hitting the table still echoes in my head like a slow explosion. I didn't storm out. I didn't yell. I just walked, shoulders slumped, heart shattered, ears buzzing. It wasn't until I stepped out onto the sidewalk and the cold air bit through my shirt that I realized I had no plan. No wallet. No phone. Just the awareness that I had finally, truly become irrelevant to the woman I built my entire life around. I walked. No destination, just motion. A few people from the party filtered out behind me, whispering like I was already a ghost. I heard one guy mutter, "I thought that was her husband," and another respond, "He didn't even fight back." And they were right, I didn't, because in that moment what was there to fight for? The woman who once cried when I got sick now laughed while humiliating me in a room full of people who didn't even know my name. After an hour of wandering aimlessly, I found myself at a closed gas station, sitting on the curb like some runaway teenager. I finally borrowed a stranger's phone to call a rideshare. The driver, bless her, didn't ask questions. Just looked at me through the mirror with a kind of quiet pity I'll never forget. When I got home, the house felt foreign. Her coat was still on the hook. One of her heels was lying on its side in the entryway like it had been kicked off in a hurry. I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I walked into the kitchen, grabbed a trash bag, and started filling it with everything she'd left behind that night. Makeup bag, clutch purse, that ridiculous pink water bottle she insisted on carrying everywhere like it was sacred. I placed it all by the door like it was radioactive. Around 2:30 a.m., her sister called. She didn't ask where I was. She just said, "You don't deserve this." Not like that. Claire's. Lost it. That was the first time anyone actually said her name out loud that night. Claire. The woman who made me believe I was safe, only to turn me into a public exhibit of spinelessness. I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, waiting for a knock that never came. She didn't come home that night, not the next day either. But what did come was a message that made everything even worse. At exactly 9:14 a.m. the next morning, my phone buzzed. Not a call. A message. The sender? Claire. No apology, no explanation, just a photo. It was blurry but unmistakable. Her, wrapped around that same smug man from the night before. Champagne in one hand, his collar in the other, lips barely an inch apart. The caption underneath simply read, "I'm choosing what makes me feel alive." That was it. Not "sorry, Merrick." Not "we need to talk." Just a digital slap in the face. Like my entire existence was a temporary inconvenience she'd finally shaken off. I stared at the screen so long it went dark. Then I stared at the reflection of my own face in the black glass. Pathetic, hollow-eyed, and too stunned to even feel angry. I wish I could say I screamed, or threw the phone, or did something dramatic. But I didn't. I sat in the exact same chair I'd been in all night and let the silence settle like cement. Later that afternoon, Claire's mother showed up at the house. I didn't even know she still had a key. She didn't say anything at first, just walked past me into the living room like she'd rehearsed it. Then she turned, arms crossed, and said, "Merrick, I didn't raise her to be like this." I almost laughed. That woman once told me I wasn't ambitious enough for her daughter. Now she stood in my home, staring at the garbage bag of Claire's things I'd left untouched since the night before. "She told me you left, that you humiliated her," her mother continued. "But I saw the videos, Merrick. People posted them online. I know what really happened." That's when it hit me. Claire didn't just betray me. She broadcasted it. I opened my laptop, hesitated, then searched for the lounge's name on social media. There it was. A shaky vertical video, over 2,000 views already. Her voice, clear as crystal, delivering that ultimatum with a smile. The comment section was a war zone. Some people praised her for being bold. Others called her cruel. But nearly everyone agreed on one thing. The husband didn't say a word. He just walked out. Claire had made me the silent exit guy in her personal drama series. And now the world knew. I shut the laptop and felt something inside me twist. Not rage, not sadness, just a deep, numbing dread. Because something told me she wasn't finished. And I was right. The next evening, just as I was convincing myself not to check my phone again, the doorbell rang. It wasn't Claire. It was her boss, Melissa. We'd only met twice before. She was polished, controlled, the type of woman who always carried herself like she had somewhere better to be. But tonight, she looked shaken. "I wasn't sure if I should come," she said as I stepped aside, confused. "But you deserve to know what's really going on." I didn't even offer her a drink. We sat in the living room, the silence only broken by the soft hum of the fridge. Melissa reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope. Inside were 3 printed screenshots. I didn't want to touch them, but she pushed them into my lap anyway. "Claire's not just seeing someone," she said, her voice tight. "She's been manipulating people at work for months. The guy from the party, that's Jordan. He's our new regional director. And your wife has been lying to everyone, including him." I blinked, staring at the screenshots. One was a message from Claire to someone named Talia, bragging about how she planned to level up her life by latching onto Jordan. Another showed her coaching a friend on how to stage a public breakup to gain sympathy. The last one, a memo she'd sent to HR, claiming I was emotionally unstable and potentially dangerous, setting the stage for her public exit, I assumed. Couldn't breathe. She said I was unstable? Melissa nodded, her jaw clenched. "Look, I shouldn't even be here." But she crossed a line with this stunt. "People at the office are furious. And Jordan? He just found out she's still legally married. He had no idea." Claire had set up a spectacle not just to humiliate me, but to sell a story, to her workplace, to her new fling, and apparently even to HR. It wasn't just about passion. It was about control. about curating an image of herself as the bold, misunderstood woman shedding her passive, irrelevant husband. After Melissa left, I sat in the dark for over an hour, staring at the fireplace we never used. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't even lie down. I opened my laptop and started documenting everything. Every message, every call log, every calendar entry she'd synced to our shared account over the last 6 months. I wasn't even sure why I was doing it yet. Maybe for a lawyer. Maybe just to feel like I had a grip on something. But in the back of my mind, something else was taking shape. If Claire wanted to turn my silence into a weapon, maybe it was time I showed her how loud silence could really be. The idea came to me around 4 a.m. As I sat on the bathroom floor, knees hugged to my chest like some sad cliché. I didn't want revenge. I don't have it in me. But I needed something more than pain. Something that didn't feel like surrender. And I remembered something Claire once said offhandedly, during a dinner party over wine and roasted duck. If you want to shut someone down, don't fight them. Just make them explain themselves in public. So I did just that. I compiled a folder, no insults, no name-calling, just facts. Screenshots, calendar entries that proved the timeline of her affair. Her texts to Talia, laughing about Jordan's cluelessness. A short voice memo she accidentally recorded and uploaded to our shared cloud while badmouthing me to a coworker. I didn't even have to spin it. Her words did the work for me. Then I wrote a caption. This was my wife's farewell to our marriage. She turned it into a performance. I didn't speak that night, but I'm speaking now with her own words. Make of it what you will. I didn't tag her. I didn't post it with a hashtag or a dramatic song. I uploaded the images and caption as an unlisted video on a neutral account and sent the link to one person. Claire. No warning. No message. Just the link. 5 minutes later, she called. I let it ring. She called again. Then again. Then came the messages. What is this? Turned into, are you serious right now? And eventually, take it down. This is cruel. The irony hit so hard I laughed for the first time in days. Cruel? I wasn't the one who staged a breakup monologue in front of coworkers and friends with my husband as the punchline. Then radio silence. Until 11:37 a.m. When I got a message from Jordan himself. Just one line. Didn't realize she was this calculated. You deserved better, man. That should have felt like a victory. But it didn't. Not really. Felt hollow. Like clapping for a fire that burned down your house. Sure, it's over, but you're still standing in ash. And yet, something shifted. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My heart still ached. But I could finally feel the anger hardening into something steadier. Not rage. Not pettiness. Just clarity. I wasn't trying to win anymore. I was just done playing her game. I thought that would be the end of it, that maybe, just maybe, she'd fade into the background now that her illusion was shattered. But Claire doesn't vanish. She reroutes. 3 days passed without a single word from her. No messages, no calls, no sudden knock at the door. I convinced myself that silence meant closure, that maybe I had actually reached the finish line of this nightmare. I even went outside for the first time without glancing over my shoulder like a hunted man. And then I got the letter. Not an email. Not a text. An actual handwritten letter. The envelope was pink, her handwriting still annoyingly perfect. Round letters like she was writing to a child. Inside was a 2-page manifesto, drenched in the kind of false regret only Claire could pull off. I never meant for things to go so far. You humiliated me by making everything public. What we had was real, Merrick, but I outgrew it. You were always too soft for the life I wanted. I read it 3 times, each pass making me feel smaller, like I had somehow ended up apologizing in my head for being myself. And then, at the very bottom, scrawled in red ink like it was a loving afterthought. P.S. I'll be coming by this weekend to collect the rest of my things. I hope you'll be civil. Civil. This woman publicly discarded me like I was a clearance item at a store she no longer shops at. And now she wants civility? The worst part? I was actually preparing to nod and smile and maybe even help her carry boxes out like a spineless concierge to her exit. But that night, something broke. I stood in the hallway staring at the photos still on the wall. Wedding photos, birthday parties. A framed note she once left on my nightstand that said, "Thanks for always being the calm in my chaos." I stared at it until the words blurred. Then I took it off the wall and shoved it into the trash. Not out of anger, out of necessity. Because keeping reminders of who she pretended to be was the most dangerous part of all. She thought this was still her stage. But I was done being the quiet one in the audience. She showed up 20 minutes early. I hadn't even had time to mentally prepare, which, knowing Claire, was probably intentional. Her knock was light, almost cheerful. I opened the door to find her dressed like she was heading to brunch, not collecting the remains of a broken marriage. Sundress, wedges, no shame in sight. "Hi, Merrick," she chirped like we were old friends catching up. I said nothing, just stepped aside and let her walk in. She made a show of looking around, scanning the living room like it was a house she used to rent. I noticed her eyes hesitate on the blank spots on the walls where the photos used to hang. She didn't comment. Of course she didn't. She just set down her phone on the coffee table and asked, "Did you pack up my things already?" "No," I said. "You can pack your own chaos." For a second, the mask slipped. Just barely. Her jaw twitched. But then she smiled again, walking toward the hallway closet. She opened the door, pulled out one of her old coats, and held it up like she was debating whether it still sparked joy. I stood there, arms crossed, trying to breathe through the tornado in my chest. "You know," she said, not facing me. "Jordan's disappeared, ghosted me, won't answer calls, blocked me on everything. Wonder why that happened." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She turned then, really looked at me and said, "You made me look insane." "No," I replied calmly. "You did that yourself. I just stopped covering for you." There was a beat of silence between us. Thick, heavy, filled with all the things I should have said years ago. I expected her to yell, to cry, maybe even throw something. But instead, Claire laughed. A short, bitter laugh that sounded more like a warning than amusement. Then she walked to the table, picked up her phone and said, "Well, I hope exposing me to your little internet fan club helped you feel like a man." That one stung. I won't lie, because deep down, some part of me did wonder if maybe I'd gone too far. Maybe sharing her messages, her lies, made me no better than her. But that part of me was dying. Slowly, quietly, and the silence it left behind was starting to feel like peace. She filled 2 boxes in total. Took her things, her perfume cloud, and whatever fragments of control she thought she still had. As she stood in the doorway, arms full, she glanced back one last time. "Merrick," she said flatly, "you'll regret making me your villain." I held the door open and replied, "You made yourself unforgettable. That's worse." Then I shut it. Gently, finally. But the story wasn't over. Because 3 days later, something arrived in the mail that twisted everything I thought I understood into a new kind of nightmare. The envelope was plain. No return address. No stamps. Just my name, typed cleanly across the front like it had been printed with surgical precision. I hesitated before opening it, expecting another letter filled with guilt-spun barbs or some legal threat masked as a goodbye. But inside it was different. It was a check. From Jordan. Folded once, clean and crisp. Attached to a single note that read, "I believed her until the night of the video. This doesn't fix what she broke, but maybe it helps you build something new." It wasn't a huge sum, but enough to make me sit down. Enough to prove that the truth had reached further than I'd expected. And maybe, just maybe, people were beginning to see me not as the man who walked out silently, but the one who finally stood up. That night, for the first time in what felt like years, I cooked for myself. Not microwaved leftovers. Real food. Music played low in the background. Instrumental jazz, something Claire used to hate, and I lit a candle just for the hell of it. I wasn't celebrating exactly. I was acknowledging that the worst had passed, that the pain hadn't won. The house still echoed when I walked through it. Her scent lingered faintly in the closet, and sometimes my brain still filled in the blanks with old habits, waiting for her voice, expecting a slammed door. But now the silence was mine. Not a punishment, not a void. A choice. I started therapy. I told my sister everything. I even joined a local book club, though I haven't read anything in full yet. I mostly listen. But it feels good to be around people who see me for me. Claire hasn't reached out since. Not once. And that's its own kind of closure. So no, I didn't win. This wasn't about winning. It was about remembering I exist outside someone else's script. I'm not her villain. I'm not her accessory. I'm Merrick. And for the first time in years, I like the sound of my own name. Thanks for listening to this confession on the Reddit Confessions channel. If you've ever experienced a shocking twist in your own life, especially one that changed everything for the better, share it in the comments. What's a personal moment in your history that flipped your perspective completely? And if you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around. There's always more truth waiting to be told.